point's really important because, like I said, I obviously work day to day in the real estate space, and so I'm always like very cognizant of sentiment, right? Like
Right.
what's home buyer sentiment, and home buying, particularly in Canada, is like just it's a massive driver of our economy. So like housing market slows down, we will feel that months down the road. And so I'm just seeing it today. It's like sentiment's changing, right? Like people are like, oh, there's a war out there, gas prices are going up. Like people are uneasy, they're uncomfortable, and so you're starting to see that some of that activity pull back, right? That speculative fever it's just not what it used to be. And so yeah, I think that it's that sentiment. And so yeah, the tightening, as Rich pointed out, to can come from many factors outside of just central bankers. And I think that's kind of the argument that we're making today, is that the market is going to do a lot of the tightening for the central bankers moving forward. Funny you were actually talking about, Keith, you're talking about governments and the oil and gas policy. It's pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys saw, I love him or hate him, but Elon Musk was out on Twitter this week. He's, quote, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. He went on to say, obviously, this would negatively affect Tesla, but sustainable energy solutions simply cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports.
No shit, Sherlock.
But it's just like, and then like, I mean, like, again, guys, this is a guy that's like literally disrupting the combustion engine here. That's, and the fact that he's coming out and making a claim like that, I think you have to be cognizant, because I'm just seeing it again. We joked about it on the show before, but you go in Vancouver right now, a liter of gas is over $2. I think we hit $2.10 a liter. Part of that is obviously government related, i.e. Carbon taxes, which are set to go up in BC here on April 1st again. And people are going, oh, gas is $2 a liter. What the hell? Government needs to fix this damn war in Russia. It's like, government created a lot of the problem, guys. When you tell oil and gas companies to stop, exploring for new supply, you run into these sort of problems. And so Russia, Ukraine is kind of the icing on the cake. And I don't know if you guys want to touch on some of this energy policy in Europe. I know Rich is probably dying to get in there, because Canada's, we talked about it, I think, on the show last week. Canada sanctioned Russian oil, which was basically just lip service. I think the US has now done the same. So it kind of puts Europe in a pretty tough spot.
I want to say one thing first. I don't know anybody that owns a Tesla. I really don't. So
well, you're looking
Steve
at him.
Does.
It's a good car, okay? I'm doing my part for this world.
Coal powered,
baby.
I mean, let's not get like in this huge tent. Let's not go down this road too deeply. But like green energy policy, the lie that they told everybody, number one, is that it would be cheap, which I can assure you it's not. Just if you, Steve, if maybe we can do a podcast where you take apart your Tesla and tell us how much rare earth minerals it requires, rare earth metals, and how much excess copper it would require to basically create an electric vehicle versus an internal combustion engine. The other lie that we were told is that it would be painless. And we're obviously feeling the effect of not investing in oil and having capex to sales be at 20-year lows. And the other thing that I think is kind of a circular thing, which is that we were told that peak demand was on the way. And I think oil companies share a lot of the blame with respect to, they sort of bought the line that peak demand was on the way, because, in order to basically navigate a world of peak demand, why produce and why invest? You know what I mean? We can blame energy policy all we want, but we have to also, there's the share of the blame of the people who run these companies. And then finally, a technical point, which is the inventories are super, super low. They're back to 2015 levels, something like 2.5 billion liters in the OECD. And that's not a lot. And so, we can squawk all we want about Russia and this. Nah, it's all these things are way more complicated than I think any of these tweets or politicians or headlines ever want to get into. I don't know, Keith.
Yeah. Keith.
Well, so first of all, I said before, Europe is absolutely screwed when it comes to the situation they're in right now. And the only way they can get out of it is if they do. I do think the Eurozone will restructure. I think this genie that's come out of the energy bottle, they cannot stuff it back in. So I think it's inevitable that there will be stress created within Europe. And specifically, the Germans are going to say, hey, we've had enough of this. We've carried everyone. We're out of here. And by the way, we're going to take oil again, or sorry, we're taking that gas from the Russians. And I know it's still flowing and stuff like that, but there is so much stress within Europe. So as an example, so for people who are not aware of it, the Eurozone is the collection of 19 European countries that they said we're now going to use the same currency and have one central bank to create monetary policy for all of us. So it's all of Europe except for Switzerland, except for Denmark, except for Sweden and Norway. That's what's so funny about the Eurozone and the EU. Now, of course, Sweden and Denmark, and they're part of the EU as well, of course. But the point is, Europe it's a pretty complicated, messy place. But it's also very simple in that the reason the Eurozone fails is that they do not have federal debt. So if the old joke, I think the Americans have it. Hey, if you have to call Europe in a time of crisis, who do you call? There's no one person. You either call the Germans or the French, right? That's it. But there's no federal debt. So in Canada, Ottawa, they'll issue federal bonds. And with the Americans, they issue treasury bonds. In the Eurozone, there's no federal bond out there. It just doesn't exist. Each country will continue to issue their own bonds because the moment they issue a federal bond in the Eurozone, it means that everyone becomes responsible for paying it back. Which means that gives, that scares the crap out of Germany, of course. They're saying, well, the Italians may not pay it back. The Greeks definitely won't pay it back. You can't trust what they're going to do in Spain. And the French, you don't know if they're going to show up at the line. You just don't know, right? So there's always been a huge pushback on that. Suddenly this week, I don't know if anyone noticed, it really caught my attention. Now they're whispering signs of maybe issuing federal debt across the zone. And it won't happen, but it gets floated out there because the euro is one of the worst performing currencies in the marketplace right now. Because economically, they're really getting their screws tightened here.
Of the majors.
Yeah, absolutely, the majors. And yeah, Rich, those Russian equities aren't doing well, right?
No, they're not.
They're not doing well. But my point is that it's gone down this road, and I really do not know how they can fix it or correct it, which sort of leads into back to the central bank discussion. When everyone I think Steve, you mentioned, they're saying it's crazy. They have to raise rates by, 100 basis points or 1% and 2%, real rates are like -4%, like it's crazy stuff. The Europeans, they will not be raising rates. They're trying to talk up a good show that they will raise rates, but they will not be doing it. Next week, the Americans come out. So the Federal Reserve is going to come out. They are absolutely raising rates, and I'm expecting them to sound very hawkish. And it could be, that's the door that opens. That could cause a pretty big, it could prick this balloon out there with all these commodity prices going higher. It's the name of the game. I know Rich has been, extremely positive and bullish on the energy sector now since we started the show, and he's been absolutely right. And it's funny, Rich and I bumped into each other yesterday, and he's sort of laughing a bit. I don't know if you want to tell the story or not, but
go.
Saying, yeah,
I remember, so go for it.
Well, Rich said,
"You guys had a party on Friday without me."
No.
Yeah, I know that one. It would have imagine if Saretsky showed up, hey?
Oh boy.
But, no, Rich was saying like now people want to buy energy stocks, right? And you don't do it now. Like this is at the top.